Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Lyceum of Politics. I am back today with another new video. Now today we will discuss about the great Greek philosopher Plato and the concept of justice as discussed by him. Now Plato used the method of dialectics and in an extraordinary way he dealt with the concept of justice. And this video, my friends, is going to be very interesting as I will unfold this fascinating concept in front of your eyes. So please be with us till the end and let's see what Plato meant by justice or what he tried to mean by justice is having and doing what is one's own. Now, the classical period of ancient Greece, which existed in 5th and 4th centuries BC, was definitely one of the most brilliant periods of human history, as you can say. Now, Plato was born at that period. He was born in 427 BC and he had the royal blood of the old Athenian dynasty running through his veins. So, by birth, he was an Athenian. Okay. So during his life, Plato could see the political disturbances within the Greek society, that the Macedonians were sweeping everything from Greece, the reactionaries were rising in Greece, but perhaps the death of his teacher Socrates disturbed him the most. What he did was he left Athens on the death of Socrates and traveled to places like Egypt and southern parts of Italy for almost a decade, until he came back once again to Athens in 386 BC, where he now founded his academy, which is regarded as the first university of the ancient world. In this academy, my friends, Plato nurtured a number of intellectuals. Even one of his most famous students, Aristotle, was also a student of this academy. Now, before explaining his own theory of justice, my friends, Plato reviewed a number of traditional theories of justice that existed at that time in Greece and rejected one by one each of them. Now, the most famous among the existing theories of justice at that time were the traditional theory of justice. Now, this theory was advocated by Cephalus and his son Polemarchus, a representative of the old conventional morality, They held that justice or morality meant being true in word and paying one's own debt to God and men, and also doing good to friends and harm to enemies. So therefore we can say that the conventional view of justice held by Cephalus and Polemarchus regulates mainly the relation between the individuals and ignores the relationship between the society. So Plato rejected this theory on this particular ground, that true justice connotes the spirit of service, which involves an idea of a social whole to which this service could be rendered. Now, another theory was the radical theory of justice. The main advocate of this theory was Thrasymachus. He was one of the representatives of the radical sophists of that time in Greece. He was one of the advocates of this radical theory. He looked at justice from the anti-conventional immoralism of the Enlightenment. He didn't believe in moral obligation. Thus, to him, justice meant the interest of the stronger. Okay, that is the sovereign, which leads to the idea that might is right. So, justice of the state looks after his own interest. But what is justice for a ruler should also be just for an individual in the society. Therefore, justice shall denote the interest of each individual in the society. Every individual must look after only his own interest. But Plato rejected this particular notion also on the ground that justice cannot be the interest of the rulers. Justice should produce social harmony by developing socially expedient behavior. Another kind of theory that existed was the pragmatic theory. Now, according to the basic advocate Glaucon of this theory, justice was nothing more than the child of fear. And it was an artificial creation and a product of social convention. It springs out of the weakness and is not the weapon of the stronger. So his view was absolutely opposite to what was said by Thrasymachus. Plato rejected this particular view of Glaucon also, because Plato viewed justice as a virtue He never accepted justice as a weapon of the weak or the strong or anyone, but to him justice was definitely nothing else than a virtue. Now, Plato elaborated the idea of justice in his famous work Republic. So, after dismissing the existing theory of justice, now he sets himself, through the person of Socrates, the task of discovering the true nature and habitation of justice. The Republic centered around other dialogues of Plato, and this book was a very strong attack against the sophist teachers and the contemporary Greek politics. So he concentrated on searching the nature and habitation of justice, and as I have said, that he was highly inspired by his teacher Socrates in doing so. So following him, Plato wanted to bank upon a universal principle of justice that applies both to the life of the individual and conduct that control both the inward activity of the individual and his outward activity in dealing with others in the state. Actually, the Greek word for justice is dikaiosun, as you can pronounce, that comes very close to the concept of morality in English, It represents a disposition to do the right thing. So this is not exactly what we conceive as justice as an English term, right? To us, justice is mainly connected to judicial and administrative acts. When we think about justice, the first thing that comes in our mind is perhaps the Supreme Court of India, the High Court, the judges, the lawyers, the law books, etc. But Plato's justice, my friend, was different from this conventional idea. Okay, so it refers to justice as an organic unity of state and individual. He promoted justice as a virtue, as I have told you in my last slide, possessed a virtue that is possessed by the philosopher king. So in the following discussion, we will discuss this concept of justice in a more elaborate way. As I have said, that justice of Plato applies to both to the life of the individuals and the state. Okay, so justice at the individual level means that each individual possess the basic attributes. They are reason, spirit and appetite. And justice in the society is ensured when each individual is capable of keeping these attributes under proper bounds. Justice of the individual is both a public and a private virtue because it conserves the highest good of the society and also of the individual. Now, just like the individuals, Plato's ideal society also comprises of three basic attributes of reason, spirit and appetite. I was just talking about those in my previous slide, if you remember. However, these three attributes of the state are represented by the rulers, soldiers and farmers respectively. Okay, so this class division, according to Plato, is both natural and moral, and they are not a product of any kind of arbitrary imagination or something like that. Now see, Plato holds that each of these sections serve the society in their respective ways. The ruling class, endowed with the attribute of reason, are concerned basically with the making and the unmaking of the nation. Means what? Means that they are responsible for the governance of the country, and they are men of extraordinary quality, and therefore they are also known as men of golden class. They are supposed to be men who have gold in their nature. That is, they are as precious and extraordinary like the metal gold. Okay. Now, the soldiers who defend the society are responsible for the security of the society, and they represent the spirit of the society. They are the warriors who are supposed to be having silver in their nature. Then comes the economic class, which represent the feature of appetite and consists of the majority members of the society. They basically work for the generation of the economy in the society and can be termed as a class who produces wealth for the society. Thus, they are also known as the men of iron class, or rather men having iron in their nature. So, they are naturally less valuable than the ruling and the defending classes. See, according to Plato, justice is ensured when each of the three classes perform their own function and do not interfere in the function of the others. That is, justice is best realized when each of these three classes perform the function which it is best suited to perform without interfering in the sphere of others. Thus, justice implies the principle of harmony, functional specialization, and non-interference. It demands selfless devotion of the individual to the state and doing the right thing. Okay, so it calls for harmony between the three classes of the society. It also calls for functional specialization, that is, allotment of specific functions to each according to merit and capacity, and also for non-interference into each other's sphere of duty and concentration into your own duty or own sphere of work. So Plato believes that this kind of justice can only prevail in a society which is ruled by his philosopher king, who according to Plato is the ultimate embodiment of reason and do not use his office for self-aggrandizement and works solely for the betterment of the society as a whole. And this philosopher ruler are free from labor and private worries and any kind of entanglements by a system of communism of property and wives. I will discuss, don't worry, about Plato's communism and property in detailed manner in my following videos, and then it will be easier for you to understand this topic more clearly. Okay, so this was basically Plato's idea that justice is basically connected to the concept of an ideal state which actually is ruled by a philosopher king. So my dear friends, now let's sum up Plato's basic ideas of his theory of justice. Firstly, as I said, he talked about justice both at individual and state level. So at the individual level, he wanted recognition of the three elements of reason, spirit and appetite, and that the individuals should keep them under proper bounds. And also at the state level, he called for the same. Each of these three elements are represented at the state level by three classes respectively, and justice is based on, you remember, harmony, non-interference and functional specialization. That is one man, one work, which according to him would enrich the individual's efficiency and also enrich the life of the community. Apart from that, he also demanded the rule of philosopher king, or you can say the rule of unselfish intellect. That is the rule of a person who will not use his office for his self-interest, and that the individual existed for and in the state have no existence outside the state, and so there can be no contradiction between the individual and the state. So he called for an organic unity between the individual and the state. So friends, this was Plato's theory of justice for you in very simple terms. I hope you liked it. Very soon I will come up with more informative videos for you. If you like this video, please do subscribe and press the like button, and let's work together through the road of Lyceum of Politics. Till then, bye bye, keep well, and see you very soon.